Hello, everybody, and we are live on DrewTube. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. Hope everyone is having a good week so far, and hope you have a good evening. I am just going to talk about tonight, of course, something that I have talked about a little bit before, but not in too much detail, which is the TV show Prison Break, which, of course, harkens back to d.B.Cooper, and they incorporated d.B.Cooper into their show line, which is probably the most well known and the most uh, retold uh, DB Cooper character in popular culture that I see the most. Because when I go to different DB Cooper videos and I look in the comment section, there's always somebody that's going to mention Prison Break and the DB Cooper references in the TV show Prison Break. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about that and the cool conspiratorial stuff that gets worked into this TV show. And I'm also going to talk about a show called Man from Uncle, which is a show from the late 60s, and how I think it could have had some influence on DB Cooper. And, people talk about maybe James Bond influencing DB Cooper. As we know, Ian Fleming had things to do with the Man from Uncle TV show. So what I want to do first is first give a shout out to my good mate, Tim in England. Tim Wallace. I call him the English Braveheart now. So thanks for tuning in, Tim. I know it's late there. I do a lot of messaging with Tim about all things DB Cooper and, of course, Ted Braden. And I also want to give a shout out to Mike Davis and Karen Humes, two people that are part of Team B, as I call it. Hope you guys are doing well tonight. So I want to start this by playing a clip from the TV show Prison Break. Well, first, let me start out by giving a little background on the TV show for people that don't know about it. And it says Prison Break is an American serial drama television series created by Paul Shearing for Fox. The series revolves around two brothers, Lincoln Burrows, played by Dominic Purcell, and Michael Schofield, played by Wentworth Miller. Burrows has been sentenced to death for a crime he did not commit, while Schofield devises an elaborate plan to help his brother escape prison and clear his name. Along with creator Paul Shearing, I hope I'm saying his last name wrong, I'm probably butchering it. The series is executive produced by Matt Olmstead, Kevin Hooks, Marty Adelstein, Don Perros, Neil Moritz, and Brett Ratner, who directed the pilot episode. The series theme music was composed by Raman Dejwade. I'm screwing up every name tonight. Was nominated for a Primetime Emmy Award in 2006. So that's just a little bit of background on Prison Break, and I'm going to play a clip from the TV show. It's only about 3 minutes long. If I can get it to play. Doesn't want to play. Hold on. This is how my day is going.
Mr. Westmoreland,
Hey, Michael.
you found your cat yet?
Still MIA.
Could always get another.
I don't want another. Besides, it's a moot point. She was grandfathered. Once she's gone, no more pets.
Wouldn't be an issue if you're on the outside.
Still tugging on that leash, eh?
Yep. And this is the part where I extend a formal invitation.
Because you still think I'm D.B. Cooper.
I don't think. I know. The way I see it, you're in here doing 60 to life for vehicular manslaughter. Would have been 20, but the car you're in was stolen. Felony murder rule cubes up your sentence. And here you are. Hitting that woman was an accident. But the car? No one accidentally steals a car. So the question is, why would Charles Westmoreland be in Arizona boosting a car? 10 states away from where he lived, and only 10 miles away from the Mexican border. And why, 2 days before that, would someone make a phone call to his wife from a motel in Portland? A stone's throw away from the airport, out of which, shortly after, Flight 305 was hijacked by one D.B. Cooper. 7 hours after the hijacking, records show Charles Westmoreland was treated for a busted knee at a free clinic in Brigham City. Only way to get from Portland, Oregon to Brigham City, Utah in 7 hours is in a car breaking every land speed record known to man, or flying. His public record, b.Cooper, jumped out of that 727 about an hour after takeoff, taking a dive at 10,000 feet with $1.5 million in cash and a hastily packed parachute. Might make for a pretty rough landing, rough enough to shatter some bones, maybe even a left knee. b.Cooper would have had a car waiting for him when he landed. According to DMV records in 1971, Charles Westmoreland was the proud owner of a 65 Chevy Nova. As it happens, a 65 Chevy Nova with the registration number scraped off was found abandoned with a blown gasket along the Arizona border. A mile or two away from where you accidentally hit that woman with your stolen car.
Interesting story.
Interesting, man.
But you didn't answer one thing.
What's that?
Maybe I did hurt my knee. I did steal that car. And I did accidentally hit that poor lady. But how could I have hijacked a plane in Portland on November 24th when I was in Folsom finishing up a 30-day drunken disorderly? I hope you weren't hanging this whole escape on that money, because I'm not the one in possession of it. Thanks for the invite, though.
Okay, so that is a clip, little background from the TV show Prison Break with the characters Michael Schofield and Charles Westmoreland, who is playing b.Cooper. So Schofield's a really smart guy if you're familiar with the show, and he thinks he's got it all figured out. He's done all his research, and he fully believes that Westmoreland is b.Cooper. And even though, despite that last part where he says, okay, this all sounds good, but how could I be the hijacker of Flight 305 if I was doing a 30-day drunken disorderly in Folsom Prison? Well, spoiler alert, we go on to find out that it was actually Westmoreland's father that was doing the drunken disorderly, and that he was indeed b.Cooper. So they take some liberties here. Of course, it's $1 million. They say he jumped with $1.5 million. We know the real Cooper was 200,000, but it's TV. They're going to take some liberties, of course, but it's really cool how they incorporate this whole mystery into their TV show in this character, and he's in prison. And one thing that the show is known for is using historical names for some of their TV characters in there. And I'll read something about that. And this person says, so I'm watching a documentary on the JFK assassination called JFK, the Smoking Gun. And in it, they talk about a Secret Service agent named Roy Kellerman, who was seen taking evidence from the president's autopsy, notes, photos, bullet fragments, etc., as well as generally preventing the normal routine and chain of custody that occurs after a murder from happening. He has long been considered a main conspirator as part of a cover-up within the Secret Service. He said, anyway, as I am watching, I remembered Paul Kellerman from Prison Break, the wacko Secret Service agent involved in numerous shady dealings. Could he have been named after Roy Kellerman? Well, the answer is yes, because that's and he's one of the characters in the show. And several characters are named after presidents and politicians. Michael Schofield's brother in the show is called Lincoln Burrows, named after Abraham Lincoln, and Theodore T. Bagwell was named after Presidents Abraham Lincoln and Theodore Roosevelt. So there's lots of that conspiracy type stuff with some of the naming of the characters, which is great. And I'll put up some of these. So there, of course, is the b.Cooper character, which is Charles Westmoreland. And here is a picture of Paul Kellerman, who was, of course, the guy that was, it says Paul Kellerman, Edelstein. This is the one from the show. He's a ruthless Secret Service agent who played a key role in Lincoln Burrows' Purcell incarceration for the murder of Vice President Caroline Reynolds' brother. His partner is Agent Daniel Hale, who he has known since they served in the Army together. So that's the character on the right that's named after the guy involved with the JFK assassination, Paul Kellerman. So that's a picture of course, the character versus the real life person. And then you have Lincoln Burrows, who's the brother of Michael Schofield, named after Abraham Lincoln, who needs no named introduction. And then we go to the D.B. Cooper character, which his name is Charles Westmoreland. And I'm pretty sure no one's ever announced this, that he's named after the general in Vietnam, General William Westmoreland. So maybe this is some kind of, and don't take it too seriously, but a little shout out to maybe a Vietnam connected D.B. Cooper suspect if they're really digging deep, because I've never heard the name Westmoreland. It's not that uncommon, but since you're dealing with a show that's going with Abraham Lincoln and some JFK stuff, I hear Westmoreland, I think Vietnam, because of course General Westmoreland was in charge of all the troops in during the Vietnam War. So that makes me think of some Vietnam guys from the DB Cooper case. So the three suspects that come up the most that have Vietnam connections to DB Cooper hijacking, of course, the guy on the right's my favorite, Ted Burnett Braden, MacV-SOG, Special Forces Vietnam, and then the middle, Richard Floyd McCoy, which was in his first tour of duty in Vietnam. He was in Special Forces, 5th Group, and then he comes back to the United States for a while, and then he goes does a second tour later in Vietnam as a helicopter pilot, wins a Distinguished Service Cross, and we all know the story about Richard Floyd McCoy, but he was a Vietnam veteran. And then, of course, Airborne Bob on the left, Robert Rackstraw. We all know well about Airborne Bob. Was indeed a Vietnam veteran. He got kicked out of the Army for lying about, I think it was his education. If Nikki's in the chat, he can correct me on that, but I think that's why Robert Rackstraw got thrown out. So just makes me think of this Vietnam connection, just naming him Westmoreland, the DB Cooper character. So there's, the main three. You got different characters named after that. So here's another picture of the real Roy Kellerman. There he is on the far left. You have I don't know who these other two guys are, but this is Roy Kellerman on the left, and then you got President Kennedy over here, second to the right. And then, of course, and in the show, the DB Cooper character, Charles Westmoreland, has a cat, and the cat's name is Marilyn. So I'm not sure. Maybe that's after Marilyn Monroe. I'm not sure, but it could come into play. So where's this all going? I don't know, but it's fun to talk about. Hey, Chris. I always get that. Okay. Get back to my full screen. Okay, let me get back to my full screen. So going back to Prison Break. No, yeah, Rackstraw had quite a few skills, but no, I don't believe he was Cooper either. So the plot in the show, talking about Charles Westmoreland as DB Cooper, is he gets to know Michael Schofield pretty well, who's this really intelligent guy. So Westmoreland knows he's probably never going to get out of prison, and he winds up getting killed at the end of the show, but he winds up confiding in Michael Schofield where his hidden loot is. And it's somehow during the show grows from $1.5 million taken during the Cooper heist to $5 million. So before he dies, he winds up telling Schofield where he can go dig up his loot in Utah. So Schofield winds up breaking out of Fox River Penitentiary. That's the fictional prison in Prison Break. And he has a crew of guys that are going to help him go dig up basically DB Cooper's treasure. And Westmoreland has a daughter who has cancer. They won't let him out of the prison to go see her. And he's hoping that his legacy will live on. If he tells Schofield where the money is, the money will live on. And hopefully Schofield will find his daughter if she's still alive and give her part of the money. So this is his last shot of infamy, telling Schofield where to find DB Cooper's loot. So flashback, he is DB Cooper. He hijacks Flight 305, and the way that they find out that it was Westmoreland was the day of the hijacking. He gets gasoline in his car before he tries to drive to Mexico before hitting this woman and accidentally killing her. And that's what lands Westmoreland in prison. But he gets gas at a gas station using one of the DB Cooper $100 bills. In this case, we know the real one, DB Cooper, were 20s, but this is a $100 bill. And they wind up running the serial number. So that's how they know that this is the real b.Cooper. So they want to interview the guy who got the $100 bill and reported this. And this whole story goes back to, and they're stealing from history, is the Charles Lindbergh kidnapping, because this is how, and I'll put this up, the way that Bruno Hauptmann, of course, was the lone suspect in the Lindbergh baby kidnapping. Here he is on the right. Bruno Richard Hauptmann was caught for the Lindbergh kidnapping because he went to a gas station and he used a bearer bond backed by gold to pay for his gas. And the gas station attendant looked at the bill and he thought, this looks unusual. I think this is this $10 bill is something similar to that he used. And the gas station attendant thought that was really odd to use this type of bill. So he wrote the man's license plate number down on the bill and later reported it. And that's what led to the capture of Bruno Richard Hauptmann. And of course, they found the famous parts of the ladder that was used to crawl up to the house to kidnap the Lindbergh baby. And long story short, Bruno Hauptmann goes down for the Lindbergh crime. He always protested his innocence. But long story short, they're borrowing from history. So this whole part about the $100 bill, the b.Cooper money, is stealing from the true story of the Lindbergh baby and Richard Hauptmann getting caught using this unusual currency for gasoline. So this is interesting. So where I'm going with this is, in the show Prison Break, they named the character at the gas station. I'll read a little bit of the script, and I know I'm all over the road, but this is interesting. It says, there's a guy listed as having the only b.Cooper bill ever found. His name, Harold Jenkins. And remember that name. DB bought gas from Jenkins with 100 on the day of the hijacking. We checked the serial numbers and they matched. It says, you worked the case fresh out of the academy and nobody's cracked it yet. What makes you think that these escapees know where the money is? Because they may have been locked up with the real b.Cooper. Jenkins from the gas station. He's still alive. Says should be. He was only 18 at the time. Well, let's go say hi to him. So they go and they interview in the show. Of course, this is fiction. Richard Jenkins, and he says the exact money. It says jumped out of the plane with 5 million. See, this changes around. It was $1.5 million, then he goes to 5 million, which is what the ransom is. And it says, but Westmoreland didn't have the money on him when he was arrested. He ditched it before he got caught. And it goes on about interviewing Jenkins about what time did he come by the gas station and use the $100 bill. And this is like, the whole story stolen from, of course, the Lindbergh deal. So going into the name, Harold Jenkins, well, Harold Jenkins is the name of Conway Twitty, of course, the famous country singer. And we don't know if this is named after Conway Twitty, because they, but it's odd to give the gas station attendant a full name in a script, because he had a really short part in Prison Break. But in my early research of looking at everybody connected to Ted Braden, I'm going to have a Braden angle on this, of course, right? It's all things Braden. And I pull up people finders and stuff like this. Well, it connects Braden to none other than Harold Jenkins. And that's not Conway Twitty. I think it's another Harold Jenkins. And it says relatives here. Here's a screenshot. What I pulled up, it says Catherine Braden, Dolores Fallhaber. I've never been able to find her, or D. Fallhaber. That name comes up a lot. And you see two Harold Jenkins. There's one that was born in 75. These are real people. And then another one, age 48. Well, that's a senior and a junior, which is interesting. But anyway, these names always connect to Ted Braden. And I asked a PI buddy of mine, like, hey, I don't see where he's related to anyone named Jenkins. And he says that could be because he's used that name before as an alias. Just saying. I know it's far out. But he connects to a Harold Jenkins. And that's the name of the guy in Prison Break that took b.Cooper's $100 bill. So I know that's far out there, but it's fun to kind of dig into that. So there it is. Harold Jenkins, the name. And then where else do you see the name Jenkins? Of course, with Braden, you have Richard Earl Jenkins, which is his buddy from Vietnam that lived in Vancouver, that was a private plane pilot. His last name was Jenkins. And then the name Harold comes up. Of course, Brian Ingram's father is Harold Dwayne Ingram. So there's a Harold Jenkins. So it's just fun to play with the names, but it is interesting that they named that character taking b.Cooper's $100 bill is Harold Jenkins. So there you go. The tie to the Lindbergh baby, Harold Jenkins. There's the house Westmoreland, Vietnam. I don't know. Lincoln Burrows, Lincoln. CIA agent. So we're getting into JFK a little bit. Is let me see. Going backwards. 3 Guys, Vietnam. So that's Prison Break. And as the story goes, they do find the money. It's buried under a place somewhere. One of the Confederates with these guys, with Michael Scofield, I think he was Teabag or something, winds up stealing the money. And it's a great show. The whole thing's great. It's one of the best b.Cooper lines in a TV show ever. Yes, Lisa, is it all just CIA cover? Yes. So take a jump into Central America with Jack Singlog leading the CIA effort. Yes. Of course, Singlog co-founded the CIA. Patty knows this better than I do. I think the gas station attendant mentioned that he had not been seeing many gold certificates recently, and Hauptmann replied that he had hundreds of them. I had forgotten that. That's true. So yeah, Hauptmann's guilty. Any way you look at it, he may have had somebody that he conspired with, but Hauptmann is guilty. There's no doubt about it. Even though he protested his innocence all the way to the electric chair. Yes, never had a quality Cooper motion picture, and it's way, way overdue. You're right, Chris. Yes, that's a good point, Patty. Maybe the character Lincoln Burrows is also named after Edgar Rice Burroughs. I think I've read that before. Yes, Singlab would have been obvious. But no fear. Hey, Fire Pixie. So let me go back to the beginning. Yeah, Mike, you're right. No, he doesn't. Right? He doesn't look Latino, does he? Right there. Why am I am struggling with my slides tonight. Yeah, I mean, with glasses on, doesn't look Latino at all, does he? He looks pretty dark in this picture. Let's blow it up, Mike. Yeah, there's Ted with his lily white mama. He looks kind of dark to me. And this picture is from 1975. So, yeah, I put a pair of sunglasses on that. Yeah, it looks pretty dark to me. So there goes that argument. And no, that hasn't been photoshopped. That came from Ted's nephew, Mike Dearbaugh in Scotland. That photograph was in a shoebox for like 30, 40 years. And Mike uploaded that to Find a Grave. So you see the one on Find a Grave. He's just as dark in that photo as well. So no, that has not been photoshopped. And throw a pair of glasses on that guy. My grandfather was really dark skinned. And I think Ted's got a beat there. Yes, he does. That's a good point, Tim. Ted's got the burns right there. Right there. He's got the burns and the dark skin happening in that photograph. Ryan loves making fasting star. Ryan loves making fun of the Rodney B. What was it? What was his last name? The guy was like 19 at the time of the hijacking. So Rodney gets a quick out for b.Cooper. You're in Cebu, Philippines? Really? Do you know who else is there? Anybody want to guess who else is there? Hey, Darnell, how are you? Ned. Ned is in Cebu, Philippines. Is this Ned? I think Ned is back in Cebu. So if you haven't met Ned and you're not Ned, you need to go meet Ned. But anyway, here is this is Paul Shearing, if I'm not screwing that up totally. He's the creator of Prison Break. So I would believe he was the one that's putting the DB Cooper references in the TV show. Good point about the watch, Tim, because in Prison Break, Westmoreland has a pocket watch that was really, really important to him, and it had a picture of his daughter who later got cancer, and her name was his wife's name was Mary, and I can't remember Anne. His wife's name was Anne, and then his daughter I think is like Annie, and he's got a little pocket watch that's really important to him in prison with a picture of Annie, his daughter, which reminds me of the watch that that Braden had that he wanted back when he was getting kicked out at Fort Dix. So anyway, going over to Man from U.N.C.L.E, this is another thing that I think could have inspired the whole DB Cooper thing. It's got ties to Ian Fleming, of course, of James Bond. We hear about James Bond maybe influencing Cooper with the glasses, the tie, and the whole the drinking, smoking thing, the Mad Men deal going on, in the ties to that. And of course, when I hear U.N.C.L.E, I think of the DB Cooper letter number 6 and the references to U.N.C.L E, and I'll put that letter up. Of course, U.N.C.L E in the show is an acronym. Man from U.N.C.L E was originally titled Ian Fleming Solo. Of course, maybe that's where the name Han Solo comes from. And Ian Fleming, the creator of James Bond and Napoleon Solo, which is a character in the Man from U.N.C.L E. And U.N.C.L E in the show stands for United Network Command for Law and Enforcement. But the creators also didn't mind people thinking it was Uncle Sam or having a CIA type connection. They didn't want people to necessarily always think of what it really stood for in the show, which was United Network Command for Law and Enforcement. But they wanted people to also think it had a CIA connection when they did it. So, of course, going back here, I'm thinking of this letter, DB Cooper letter number 6, which says March 28, 1972. Gentlemen, this letter is to let you know I'm not dead, but really alive and just back from the Bahamas. So your silly troopers up there can stop looking for me. That is just how dumb this government is. I like your articles about me, but you can stop them now. DB Cooper is not real. I had to do something with the experience U.N.C.L E taught me. There's your uncle. So here I am, a very rich man. U.N.C.L E gave too much of it to world idiots. See, world, CIA, idiots, and no work for me. I had to do it to relieve myself of frustration. I went out of the system and saw a way through good old U.N.C.L E. See, U.N.C.L E all through this. Now you know I am going around the world and they will never find me because I am smarter than the system's lackey cops and lame duck leaders. Now it's U.N.C.L.'s turn to weep and pay one of its own some cash for a change. And please tell the lackey cops DB Cooper is not my real name. Of course, that's Cooper letter number 6. It's the only DB Cooper letter that wasn't signed DB Cooper. It's signed just a rich man. Even pours dirt on the whole DB Cooper name, which I always thought the real Cooper would do because we know his name was Dan Cooper. So why would he latch on to a mistake made by the Associated Press by DB Cooper? It's just insane. And Tim here pointed out that when he says he's just back from the Bahamas, well, that's a good place to launder money. Though back in 1971, too, one of the top places to launder money was the Bahamas. So someone writing that in that letter was actually, that's smart. You know, if you were faking that to put Bahamas, makes you think, hey, it's too late. I've already laundered this money. So if the letter's not genuine, which I believe it is, it was a smart thing to put in there about him just getting back from the Bahamas. So more on U.N.C.L E. Let me go back to that. Now that you know the part about the name, it says U.N.C.L E debuts September 20. This is written from September 22nd, 2014. 50 years ago today, another spy-fi sensation that involved 007 creator Ian Fleming debuted on U.S. television. There have been a lot of significant James Bond anniversaries of late, but another pop culture phenomenon started 50 years ago today. Its success was also due in part to 007 creator Ian Fleming. Convinced Willis James Bond was making his way from paperbacks to the silver screen, the Man from U.N.C.L E follows the exploits of two secret agents, American Napoleon Solo, played by Robert Vaughn, and Russian Ilya Kirkyekin, I know I'm screwing that up, David McCallum, who worked for a fictitious secret international espionage and law enforcement agency called U.N.C.L.E, United Network Command for Law and Enforcement. TV producer Norman Felton approached Ian Fleming in late 1962 to create a series based on the style of North by Northwest. Fleming concocted a rough outline for the series with a central character called Napoleon Solo. I think that's where George Lucas got Han Solo, who would be seen as an Americanized version of Bond. So this was the American James Bond. Also, inaugurous his MI6 setup, Solo would report to a boss who had a secretary. In this case, April Dancer was in place of Miss Moneypenny. Fleming had to bow out of the creative process due to his contracts with the Bond producers, who had sent Felton a cease and desist letter in February 1964 that demanded the immediate end of the use of Fleming's name in connection with the series and to stop using the Solo character. In Goldfinger, which was being filmed at the time, a mafia boss character named Solo is dispatched by Oddjob and then crushed in a scrapyard. In fact, Felton's original series proposal was titled Ian Fleming Solo. Later, the series was originally to be called Mr. Solo or just Solo, but the attention of Bond's legal team saw to it whilst the pilot was being filmed in November 1963. Fleming had to sign an affidavit that nothing from Solo showed infringed on any of his Bond characters that he had sold to Eon Productions. Although there was always the threat of further legal action, Felton could keep the Solo character if the show name changed. Felton airbrushed a few of Fleming's details away to their overlap with the Bond films. Willis Solo survived, Dancer was nixed, although the character was used later. The character of Ayelet Kirkerin and the hierarchy of U.N.C.L.E were creations of producer Sam Rolfe. So who knows? I like the whole U.N.C.L.E thing. It's got, of course, you see the character on the right, played by Robert Vaughn. It's got your very b.Cooper-ish with the black tie. The guy on the right, it just makes me wonder if Man from U.N.C.L.E could have inspired b.Cooper coming out, of course, before the hijacking. It's in the 60s, but it's that whole look. It's talking about U.N.C.L.E. It's just fun to speculate. Yeah, I forgot that April Dancer, the girl from U.N.C.L.E, was played by Stephanie Powers, of course, from I know her, Stephanie Powers, more from Heart to Heart. Tim, stylometry still being worked on, but from what I can see, letter 6, Ramparts, and wife letter all look close. Yes, I agree, Tim, and thanks for looking into that comparison. And I made a slide for that just for you, Tim, of parts of that letter and comparing that to, of course, what Ted Braden wrote in Ramparts magazine. And I'll read that. I need work. I don't mean driving somebody's truck. There's a great need for people with my talents. But unfortunately, the CIA is doing the hiring, or the others, because of the CIA, lack the funds to make a contract interesting. Evidently, I'm on the agency's blacklist, and that makes it difficult to contact other employers from this country. Those who can use my help in Latin America, see, Ted was in Latin America, trying to be, look at Latin, are trying to fight using indigenous and foreign idealists, which means no money for the professionals. It's too bad Strasner, Rojas, and Somoza are in so tight with Sam. Otherwise, Sam is, just part of U.N.C.L.E. Otherwise, they would pay well. I'd like to go back to the Congo, but I don't think they'll let me. Too bad, because the anti-Motubu boys are making a bundle. And then, of course, the piece from letter 6, I had to do something with the experience U.N.C.L.E taught me. He taught me how to skydive. So here I am, a very rich man. U.N.C.L.E gave too much of it to World Idiots and no work for me. World Idiots is the CIA. I had to do it to relieve myself of frustration. I went out of the system and saw a way through good old U.N.C.L.E. Now you know, I'm going around the world and they will never find me because I am smarter than the system's lackey cops and lame duck leaders. Now it's Uncle's turn to weep and pay one of its own some cash for a change. He's really more not talking about the United States government. He's specifically talking about the CIA. Tell the lackey cops b.Cooper's not my real name. I'm sorry, that screams Ted Braden to me. Who's this person? You followed a thread on what's GLP years ago. What's GLP? And found the main guy that was posting his research, and I'm convinced he did find the real b.Cooper. I don't know who GLP is. I'd forgotten that. Yeah, Patty. Fleming was a naval intelligence officer. Yeah, you're right. Ted Braid could have never heard about another hijacking and not have done it himself. So who knows? Man from Uncle, very Cooperish, because I hear a lot of these James Bond ties, and it could have been what you're getting from Man from Uncle, being it Ian Fleming's involvement. Westmoreland, Lindbergh, Conway Twitty, Vietnam Boys, Corky. Can't be Corky. Hey, Wade. Stephanie Powers must have been pretty young then. Was she still in her 20s? I don't think I have it with me, Lisa. That's true, Chris. If Braden wasn't Cooper, he would have been a successful copycat. That's for sure. Yeah, that's true, Mike. Some dude was hating. Yeah, the guy was hating. Yeah, there's some dude. Yeah, was hating on Ted because he said Cooper looked Latino, so it isn't Braden. Ah, stupid. Yeah, that guy needs to focus on that a little bit, dude. Look how dark he is compared to his mother. He looks like he's been out doing a little tanning or something. I think that would pass the Latin test myself. So you're right about that, Mike. And I'm going to go with Billy Wall over some goofball any day. Wouldn't be surprised if the FBI is aware Braden was Cooper, but didn't want him to testify about illegal operations he was involved in. That, and he had friends in high places, not just Singlaw, but Harold K. Johnson intervened on Braden's behalf. Harold K. Johnson was the head of the entire army. The only person above Harold K. Johnson was the president of the United States, and Harold K. Johnson intervened on Braden's behalf and allowed him to skip a court martial and get an honorable discharge after desertion in Vietnam. When Harold K. Johnson intervenes on your behalf, you got friends in high places all day long. Yeah, I did. My sister remembers me liking Heart to Heart. I loved Heart to Heart. She's 82 now. Wow. I did like Heart to Heart. I'm glad you remembered that. I used to watch Heart to Heart religiously. I'll check it out. Oh, breaks into a prison. I like all the prison stuff I like. Prison Break, Alcatraz. He liked One of the Hearts. I don't know anything about the Russian titanium. Yeah, Heart to Heart's great. Who remembers the name of the dog? Russian MHR titanium for the SR-71, sourced covertly by the CIA and used to spy on Russia. Yep. No one remembers the dog from Heart to Heart? Somebody should. Freeway. Got it. The dog was Freeway. Tim. Yes, a suspect destroyer. Heavy smoker, chain smoker, or non-smoker. They did have filters. I know Braden's mom smoked filterless Camels. She's hardcore. That lady right there. She smoked filterless Camels her whole life. And I think she lived to at least late 80s. So it didn't catch up with her. Stephanie Powers killed William Holden. Really? Hey, Darnell. I appreciate that, my friend. I hope so, Darnell. But Hollywood's is a rough place, and I won't sell my soul. Never, never, ever. At least, anyone guess Ted Brady was b.Cooper while in Loretto prison? I don't know. That makes me think of all things Prison Break too. Of course, McCoy broke out of prison, so you got to give one over to McCoy because McCoy did break out of prison and was killed in pretty short order after he broke out, after fashioning a gun out of dental paste. How men work with Isidore Fish, who was a German dying at the time of the kidnapping. That's interesting. Hauptmann was guilty. There's no doubt about it. But did he conspire with Lindbergh himself? We don't know. Yeah, Man from U.N.C.L.E. was on a long time ago. I mean, it was 64 to 6. Yeah, it started in 64. It was every one of them was in color, which was one of the first TV shows that was all in color, and it ran to 67 or 8. Perfect time to have influenced DB Cooper. Yes, Ned. Does the person in Cebu City know Ned? That's a small world. And is a person from Cebu City Filipino? Because Ned should be easy to spot in Philippines. He's the whitest person on YouTube. Let me go back to this slide, make sure I didn't miss anything. We got Westmoreland. There's the letter, Uncle. Hey, Randy. Well, that's it. That's a little bit of a background on Prison Break and Man from U.N.C.L.E. Who knows? Just throwing it out there, food for thought. Zodcast will be back Sunday, so everybody try to catch that too. Everybody have a good rest of your week. Thanks for tuning in.